Hey folks, this is Picohan on the North American server, and this is the Tier 6 Premium American Battleship, the West Virginia 1941. The map is Estuary, it is Domination, and we are mid-tier with no CVs. This is not my ship. This was played during the Masquerados event in March, but it's very similar to a ship I've played a lot because this is basically the A-Hull Colorado, or what used to be the A-Hull Colorado, much like how the Mutsu is what used to be the A-Hull Nagato. And so the West Virginia, well, she basically plays like a lot of battleships around this tier. She is a slow battleship, which is pretty tanky with a pretty good broadside weight. But the special thing is that she has the 8 16-inch guns from the Colorado, which are the biggest guns at this tier, and not only do they pack pretty good punch, they are also quite accurate. The West Virginia pays for this by, like I said, being very slow, but also by not having any AA, which previously this may not have been a huge issue, but after the CV rework, it might be a bigger one. You may have seen me complain in chat about it just a little bit ago. It was, of course, quite frustrating being constantly harassed by CVs in my previous games with this, and in general, I'm not a big fan of when Wargaming balances a ship like this, i.e. not giving it any AA, because even though the guns are quite accurate, it makes the entire experience less consistent in that you'll do better than the average tier 6 battleship in a no CV game, but then you'll do worse than the average battleship in a single or double CV game. Despite what I just said about the gun accuracy, I just whiffed a bunch of shots against the Omaha over there. The shells aren't super slow like the North Carolinas, but they aren't fast either. So a maneuverable cruiser like the Omaha, closer to the 15-kilometer range, does have a pretty good amount of time to dodge if they are paying attention. Furthermore, because the shells are so big and they have so much penetration, it's pretty easy to get overpens rather than citadels against something like an Omaha. Sometimes it's even better to shoot at lightly armored cruisers when they are a little bit angled rather than full broadside to try to minimize those overpens. Coming up here is how to badly apply situational awareness 101. If you look at the minimap, a Shinonome was spotted directly ahead of me maybe about a minute ago, and I anticipate that he's going to shoot torps, so I actually stopped and waited at that island for a little bit to let the torps pass ahead of me if he actually shot them down this channel. Take a shot at the New Mexico and get a citadel. This is a citadel that a Fuso or maybe even a Mutsu might have had a hard time hitting for want of more penetration, but the West Virginia does this easily. We dodged the New Mexico's return volley, but of course we did not wait at that island long enough and took the 2 torps on the broadside, and that's annoying because I considered those torps, but I would have been better off not considering them and just steaming full speed and taking my turn. Having taken all of that unhealable damage, I'm of course not going to push this flank anymore, and I'm going to start to kite out, especially because the enemy team is starting to push. We do pick up the Omaha kill, finally, and do note that we got the Citadel while he was angled, not while he was broadside. The salvo on the New Mexico was also quite good, even though you don't see the damage number explicitly and there was no Citadel. The Furutaka did not learn from the Omaha, and he looked like he was doing something stupid, so I slowed down and waited for him. I felt like I was far away enough from the Shinonome for it to not be a threat. Either way, it was a very easy shot on the Furutaka. Under 10 kilometers, the West Virginia is very accurate, and you typically can't flub shots like that from dispersion, unlike, say, guns on some supposedly accurate Japanese ships. Originally, I wanted to keep pushing toward the east because I felt like I was in a good situation to finish the New Mexico off with maybe 1 or 2 full salvos. But I decided to trade that tactical advantage in order to try to start repositioning earlier. This game is not secure at all, and it looks like there will need to be fighting on the other flank. Furthermore, I really don't want to be chasing the kiting Atlanta or Shinonome on this flank. Since the New Mexico is the only thing I can shoot at anyway, I'm happy to have it take a little bit longer to kill him, so that I can start moving over there. In a slow ship like the West Virginia, you really have to try to think at least a couple steps ahead about where you want to be. The New Mexico was able to juke a couple salvos, but he couldn't keep doing that forever, and we finally finished him off with another Citadel. Despite how slow the West Virginia is, I actually consider her, and the Colorado really, to be fairly agile ships. The rudder shift and turret traverse are not actually that slow, and both of these ships actually hold speed fairly well in turns. This can at times make her feel like a faster ship than she actually is, and in some ways I might prefer a middle speed ship that retains speed well in turns rather than a fast ship that bleeds a lot of it in turns. I stayed pretty far south while going back toward the middle because I wasn't sure what the Shinonome was doing, and he did have line of sight on me, because I was being detected even when my gun bloom was down. In the meantime, taking pot shots at this bow tanking Myoko, due to the very good accuracy, I do find the West Virginia and Colorado to be much better at shooting bow-in targets than some of the more spray and pray battleships like the Normandy or the Leon. This, combined with the overmatching potential of the 16-inch shells, means that these are very good ships for shooting bow-in cruisers and battleships. Despite the fight looking close, when I started heading over here, it looks like it may have turned into a stomp, and it might be time to start damage farming instead. I popped the spotter plane here to start shooting at the Iron Duke just a little bit sooner, but it probably wasn't worth it. Basically, at max range, you're probably not hitting anything that isn't stationary or actively maneuvering, and that's even before you have the spotter plane. Most of the time, what you're using it for is to either see around or over islands and to try to help get some early spotting on torpedoes or destroyers. For the most part, the stock range on the West Virginia is fine for a Tier 6 battleship. Many American battleships still have access to the third slot range mod, which really isn't necessary anymore these days. It is a holdover from before the open water stealth firing removal, when the American battleships had significantly less range and you actually needed that mod for their ranges to be competitive. Nowadays, for most American battleships, you should probably use the AA mod because you don't have access to the accuracy mod in that slot. The Iron Duke is finally spotted again, and at least briefly, you could see how the spotter lets me see over that island even just a little bit better than the default view. You can, of course, also do the trick where you tap the M key, but for me at least, it's still very hard to see what the ship is doing when you do that. I had hoped the Iron Duke was going to cut inward instead, but he went behind the island, and it didn't look like I was going to be able to get a shot. However, it looks like he beached or something and had to back up, and I managed to kill secure him for a 5th kill and a Kraken. So that's the West Virginia 1941. With that Atlanta dead, this is pretty much the end of the game. Like the Colorado, I think the West Virginia is a pretty solid ship and perhaps underrated. It's just that it can be frustrating to play right now because there are so many planes, and unfortunately, this could be the status quo for quite a while. I do think she gets a bit of a bad rap, though, because she is kind of a premium that nobody asked for. The 1941 is in the name because the community pushed back on Wargaming, saying they wanted a later refit. So Wargaming put 1941 there in order to open up the possibility that there could be a later refit in the game. At the end here, this Atlanta who was kiting away on the west side finally shows himself. He doesn't have that much health left when I fire, but again, this is a very easy shot for the West Virginia to hit, and we secure him for our 6th kill. That's pretty much the end of this game. I'm going to show the results, of course, at the end, but really, the entertaining part here was the kill secures and the circumstances if you just read the chat along the way. With that said, this is the end of the commentary, so thanks for watching and have a nice day.